All right, we have a brand new training series for you, how to train for your first triathlon.
Yeah, this three-part series is going to cover all of the components of training for a half Iron distance triathlon. And thanks to our partners at TrainingPeaks, you'll have the opportunity to access a unique 12-week training plan.
Yeah, in this first video, we're going to be covering the concept of training for 3 different sports, how to find that life balance with all that training, and the importance of fueling your body.
Let us introduce you to what to expect from your first 4 weeks of training for a half Ironman. But before we get into the detail, just a quick reminder to click on the globe and subscribe. And if you hit that bell icon, you'll get all of our upcoming videos notified to you.
So yeah, we have developed a triathlon training plan that will hopefully prepare you as best as possible for a half Iron distance or 70.3 distance triathlon over the course of 12 weeks. Now we've developed that with a professional coach alongside GTN, and we're going to be guiding you through that today. Now, should you like, you can actually access that plan with all its detail over on TrainingPeaks. In fact, we'll pop the link for that plan in the description down below this video, should you like to go and access that. Now, in case you hadn't had enough of us already, we have also recorded some bonus videos that you'll be able to access within that plan. They'll be guiding you through the certain weeks and some of the specific sessions. Now, of course, you can download that plan, or you can get a lot of that information from these videos today. So let's get into that.
Well, in this initial stage, it's all about building up consistency and starting with nothing too large, but just making sure you can maintain this and build from it. So to start with, you're only going to have around 5 hours in the first week, and that's going to increase by 30 minutes to an hour per week. So just gradually adding a little bit more on each time. And you're going to have between 6 and 7 sessions per week. And you might think, well, with cycling playing a bigger part of a 70.3, when you actually look at the overall race, that you're going to have more focus on the bike. But actually, it's going to be broken into 2 swims per week, 2 cycles per week, and to start with, 2 to 3 runs per week. And the distances will change in their ratio as the program goes on, but the actual ratio of numbers per session will stay very much the same. And that's because when you come to the swimming, you've got such a focus needed for the technique, and running a lot of conditioning as well, so it balances itself out.
Yeah, now the plan itself actually follows a bit of a pattern. We're following a weekly structure to fit with our normal cycles. Now, given this is a 12-week program, we've actually split this off into 3 blocks, following the pattern of 3 weeks of harder work followed by 1 lighter or easier week, which we actually call a reflection week, where basically you're giving your body and your mind time to recover, but also making sure it's ready for the start of the next block. Now, as I say, this is 12 weeks. We split this off into 3 blocks of that, with your hardest weeks coming in the final block, but also teamed with your easiest weeks as we recover for the race.
Well, that leads us nicely onto the concept of training and how you actually get your body to get fitter and stronger. Well, the key here is rest and recovery. And that could sound counterintuitive. You might think, well, surely the more you train, the faster you're going to get. And within reason, yes, you do need to put that hard work in, but your body will actually absorb that and get stronger when you're making sure you've got the rest in. So you need to really make sure you prioritize this. And that brings me on to when it comes to your sessions. Obviously, you want to try and complete all of them. If for some reason, though, you miss a day or miss a session, you just have to sometimes accept that and put it to bed, because as soon as you start trying to carry it over to the next day, you'll find you're constantly on catch up, and it can be quite demotivating, as well as actually just digging yourself a little bit of a hole when it comes to fatigue.
And final note, actually, on getting fitter, I'd imagine for most of you, you're going to be doing more training than you have ever done before, and therefore burning more calories as well. So it's really important that you maintain a well-balanced diet. Also, maybe improve your diet if you haven't already been doing that yourself. That means fueling well for these sessions during, pre, and post.
It's time to introduce a few of the key sessions that are going to be cropping up across the 3 disciplines, and to explain the different effort levels that you're going to need to become familiar with. And let's start with swimming. Technique. When it comes to training, more is not always better, and quality is key, especially in swimming. And if you look at the breakdown of the training in this first block, you'll notice that actually one session per week is technique based and the other is where the hard work is. And in these technique sessions, there's going to be a mixture of some drills, but also breaking down the stroke into smaller elements so you can really focus on one element at a time. And this requires a lot of concentration. So you've got to come to this session feeling mentally fresh. It's not going to take a huge amount out of your body, but you do need to really get them right. And it can be easy to think, well, if it's not physically that hard, I'll do more concentration on the harder work, or maybe even skip one of these sessions. But trust me, actually getting your technique right now is going to give you as much return as the fitness sessions when it comes to your overall swim race. Now, the other session we talked about, well, that's going to have the hard work in. You're actually going to be pushing up to race pace and in some cases slightly above. And you'll notice that through the weeks, the block of the main set will start to increase in distance, but it's actually the pace and the effort level that you want to focus on. And these are going to be around a 7 up to an 8 out of 10. So really working quite hard. And it might sound like a bit too much and you wouldn't be able to do that on race day, but by breaking it into smaller chunks now and working hard, when you do go to put the full 1900 meters together and you pop a wetsuit on, it will feel much more comfortable on race day, trust us. I want to just add a quick note on pace. Now, I know a lot of this is around effort, but it's a good idea to just know what we're talking about when we say pace, and it's usually referenced per 100 meters. So for example, if you had a target race pace for the 1900 meter swim of a half Ironman, you'd simply need to divide that 1900 meter time by 19, which would give you the average per 100 meters. Also, we talk a lot about threshold, or that's used in the terminology. And threshold, like I've mentioned, is around a 7 or an 8 out of 10 on the effort level. But if you did want to have a specific number that you know you're working at as the average per 100 meters, you can do something called the critical swim speed test, or CSS. And for that, you need to complete a 400 meters and a 200 meters best effort. And if you do want a bit more info, you can check out our video on fitness tests for triathlon, which will guide you to that. And it will basically give you an average pace per 100 meters that would be your threshold. Well, as we're talking about effort levels and pace, we should probably move on to have a look at cycling and running.
Now for the cycling sessions, and these are going to include what we call cadence work, basically changing the speed at which we turn the pedals. Now, say for instance, you were to drop your cadence down to 70 or 60 RPM whilst maintaining the same speed, you're going to be working your legs a lot harder, a bit like a strength workout. Now you will notice you won't get your heart rate quite as high on these, but your legs certainly going to be working. Now these can be well complemented with some hill reps, but you will actually see that during this program, they get combined a bit too. Again, with the cycling sessions, you'll start to become familiar with the term threshold. Now this is an intensity of around an 8 out of 10. Now for these sessions, you can of course use heart rate or power if you have those available to you, and I would fully recommend getting them up on a head unit or on a watch so you can see them whilst you're riding. But if you are going to use them, we'd fully recommend actually doing a functional threshold power test, or FTP. Now fortunately, we've got a video on our channel which explains just how to do that, but theoretically, your FTP is the maximum power that you can sustain for an hour. Now a good example session that you'll see within this program is a 60-minute ride with 3 lots of 8 minutes at this FTP intensity, and you'll quickly learn that you need to pace those well. Now another session that you'll see increase as the weeks go on is your longer ride. Now these are actually planned in for the weekend when the majority of people have a little bit more time. Now we'd actually suggest you switch off from the numbers for these and just go and enjoy yourself. Perhaps go and ride with some friends. This is an opportunity to get used to riding your bike, conditioned to riding for sustained periods of time, and your position.
Well, the running actually is broken down in quite a similar way to cycling. In fact, you have a long run, and that's going to gradually build in duration as the weeks go on, as well as doing some work around threshold and race pace. But you've also got the addition of some technique work to consider, like you do in swimming. Now, the idea of race pace might sound a little bit daunting. You might think, oh my God, I've got to run flat out. But let's take it back a moment, because realistically, you're going to be running a half marathon to start with, so it's half marathon pace, but probably even a little bit slower because you're putting that after the swim and the bike. So bear that in mind. And actually, race pace effort is around a 6 to 7 out of 10. So when you do get those sessions, they're probably not going to be as hard as you first think. In fact, the first time you actually do experience some race pace effort is 2 by 1 kilometre, put within a bigger run. And you've got to be really disciplined to make sure you don't go faster than your half marathon pace effort on those, because it will feel relatively easy to start with. And the long run is fairly self-explanatory. Like the long ride, it's important for conditioning your body to running for this length of time and developing that aerobic capacity. And with having to fit in both the long run and ride on the weekend, you will start to notice the fatigue, especially with that Sunday run. And this is good training for what you need to expect towards the end of a half Ironman. And some of the long runs will have pace changes in to help you keep good form and just to break them up and get a little bit more return from the time that you've got. And then your other runs are generally your easy recovery style runs that are just going to add a little bit more to your base, but you want to still include some technique work. And you'll notice if you're following the program, there's a few runs that have strides at the end, and this might seem a little bit unnecessary. What's the difference going to make of doing a few pickups at the end of a steady run? Well, actually quite a lot, because especially as you go through the program and you start to get fatigued, your run form can start to drop, and this is not only going to make you less efficient, but it also could lead to niggles. So just having these strides in your program will remind you of good running form, so make sure you don't neglect those.
Now, there is a lot to take in when starting a new training plan, especially one that is only over 12 weeks and has 3 different sports involved in it. Now, the key here to getting the maximum benefit from it all is pacing and managing your effort levels. Harder does not necessarily mean better, and just going hard in all your sessions isn't going to mean that you're going to get faster. You need to trust the program and be honest with yourself about your effort levels and RPE. If you have extra metrics to go off, such as heart rate or power that you can see on your watch or your head unit, then super, use them.
Yeah, well, the effort levels that you need to be familiar with are, first of all, easy, so around a 3/4, and then steady effort sits around a 5 out of 10 on the RPE scale, and beyond that we start to move into the kind of cheekier session, so around a 6 to 7 out of 10 is in that tempo, moving up to threshold area, and that's roughly where your 70.3 effort is going to sit. And you'll also become aware of 8 out of 10 effort, so these are the threshold ones, and they're going to be really hard, and yes, they're above your race effort, but that's where you're really going to make the difference with those fitness gains.
Now, there will also be times in this program where sessions and the program itself feel easy, and you may start questioning it. But as I said earlier on, trust us with this program, because some of those hard sessions are going to get a lot harder. And if you've gone too hard too early in this program, you're going to regret that. Equally, make sure that you do easy sessions easy so that you can turn up to those hard sessions ready to go.
Well, today we've touched on the basics of the training plan, but if you like the sound of any of those sessions and you want to get it in more detail with a description of why you're doing it and how it fits with the whole program, well, TrainingPeaks now have that 12-week plan available for you to download into your plan, and then from there you can simply sync it to your devices so it uploads and you'll have your session ready to follow out on the road or wherever you are. And like we said earlier on, the link to that is in the description below.
All very exciting. Now, as we said earlier, this is just one part of this 3-part series. We've covered weeks 1 to 4. We're also going to be covering weeks 5 to 8 and 9 to 12. So make sure you tune in for those. But in the meantime, best of luck with the training.